Liam, welcome back to the Robert Scott Bell Show.
Hey, it's great to be on.
Well, you've been covering this subject. You're in the film House of Numbers as well. And, the things you've been uncovering are quite fascinating in terms of what HIV is or it is not, much less what this acquired immune deficiency syndrome is and what it is not. I figured I'd just lay it out there for you to just knock it out of the park.
Yeah, let's talk about it. First, it's National HIV Testing Day, and you should know that Paul McCartney's on the YouTube being promoted for a Born HIV-Free Day. And what that means is they're going to sell the world on the idea that if you give African women enough drugs, poor people enough drugs, they'll be free of HIV. That they mean that they'll test HIV negative. So we have to talk about the tests. HIV tests, and I don't know if you set this up, but HIV tests are terrible. They stink. They have no particular standard. They come up positive for no one thing. This is not me saying it. This is not just one guy's opinion. This is now 25 years of the medical literature saying we have no standards. The proteins that we put into these tests occur throughout the human body. The HIV tests are made of proteins. The proteins come from experiments that were done at the National Cancer Institute. All of this is in the record books. All of this you can find yourself. The National Cancer Institute from the late 70s to the early 80s, the proteins that are considered very, very important, specific to HIV, guess where they also occur? Inside your cell, where they make all of the normal products of your cell. That's what researchers are now discovering. They have had to change the name of HIV again. In the beginning, it was one of the class of tumor viruses. Well, they had to change the name of tumor viruses because they found these little particles that bud out of cells that are very fragile, that fall apart, that don't do anything to your cells. They bud out of them when they're sick, that they don't cause tumors. So they had to stop calling them tumor viruses. So they started calling them retroviruses. Well, that's because they thought they went backwards, because originally they thought only things went one way because they were wrong. That's why they have to be retro. Get it? They were wrong, so they have to come up with a name that says these things go in reverse of what we thought. That's how science seems to work. Now they have a new name. The new name is exosome. And the standard medical literature now says HIV in all senses is an exosome. It is made inside the cell in the way that all of these normal cellular products are made. It uses the same identical proteins. It is not an it, Robert. It is a class. It is a wide-ranging class. In the very beginning of AIDS research, Robert Gallo said this thing has no particular genetic identity. When we fish it out of cells, it's always different. Now, if you and I went fishing, and every time we went fishing, we caught a different thing, a boot, an old tire, a minnow, a piece of seaweed, and at the end of the day, we brought it home to our wife or our family and said, look, I caught a big, wonderful trout. What would they say to us? You're crazy. You didn't catch a trout. You said, no, it's a trout. I was going fishing for trout, so I caught. That's what HIV researchers do. They go fishing in the cell for junk. They pull up all kinds of different stuff. They say that they can never find the same genetic material. Nevertheless, they call it the same thing. This is the precise identity of what they're now calling exosomes. And I want to recommend right here Janine Roberts' book, Fear of the Invisible, published. You can buy it on Amazon, Fear of the Invisible. She has a nice last couple chapters where she really reviews this literature. She's really breaking ground, and I want to give her credit for that. She's citing the literature, and the literature says that the standard medical literature, I don't mean Nexus magazine, nothing wrong with it, but I'm not talking about that. I mean Journal of the American Medical Association, the Lancet, British Medical Journal, that HIV is in a class, and HIV is always changeable, but it's in a class of these always changeable messenger elements called exosomes, and these exosomes are of extreme importance in regulating cell health, in dealing with disease, in doing things that nobody's figured out yet. What do the HIV researchers now want to do, now that they've identified these as exosomes? They want to give patients exosome-suppressing drugs.
even though they haven't caught the exosomes causing any problem, doing anything. We've talked about this, Liam, off the air as well, that many times when cells are in stress, they're induced stress due to toxins, due to drugs, or due to a lack of nutrients, that the body, the cells try to survive. They're expelling chromosomal material, genetic material. We think or ponder that this may be a survival mechanism, but instead it's interpreted by Big Pharma and those that are paid by Big Pharma through governments as something that will suppress the immune system, never acknowledging the basic concept that with poor nutrition, poor sanitation, lack of adequate hygiene, and, of course, too many of these toxins, that alone could be death-inducing.
Right. Well, AIDS medicine is all Western medicine, and I want to talk a little about AIDS critics for 1 second, is based on the concept of war medicine. And war medicine is that there's an invader in your body, and you must destroy it, and if you destroy part of the body, that's the price of war. This is not what Linus Pauling called orthomolecular medicine, where you understand the molecules of the body, the interaction of the tiny machine molecules of the cell, these beautifully designed little robots that just wander around your cell and carry things. Nobody has ever imagined how complex and how wonderfully interesting the cell is. And these little exosomes are part of that living machine matrix that is us, and they want to now make drugs that suppress these. Well, they'll find a new way to kill people, I guarantee it. The one critical point, the AIDS critics for about 20 years, since 87, since Duesberg popped on with his cancer research paper, they've been saying one thing over and over again, which is AIDS is just all these old other diseases, and why can't we go back to treating patients the way we normally do? Well, there's one problem with that. And it is just what I said. Western medicine has never understood how to deal with real AIDS, that is clinical immune deficiency.
Hold on, Liam. We got to go to a break here. Liam is with me here. We're going to be joined by Brent Leung, House of Numbers, next segment. Liam, carry on the conversation, because this may be shocking to people, recognizing that the science behind so-called the acquired immune deficiency syndrome is in such disarray. Right.
Well, we covered a lot, and we covered it kind of breathlessly in the last bit, and we talked about how the things that, and they really are things that they're calling HIV, this massive variety of proteins and all kinds of things, they're now calling exosomes, and they're struggling to figure out how these things, which are necessary and essential for cell repair, and they have biological identities that people haven't even begun to guess at, because they've been locked in this war medicine model. It's actually been the sort of anti-neo-Darwinists, the new evolutionary researchers who, aren't immensely interesting, but they're better than the neo-Darwinists, and they're saying enough with this neo-Darwinism. Life is not this giant accident. There are feedback mechanisms, and they're going to be stealing back essentially HIV, which is this class of exosomes. They need them because these things are responsible for cellular adaptation. In other words, what Robert Gallo and these guys were finding were responsible for the cells probably trying to get better, but the mistake that they made was blaming AIDS, and AIDS, blaming all these things for AIDS, and AIDS is clinical immune deficiency, and there is a general outline for what you can call AIDS when you're not just making a political definition, and it goes like this: you scrape all the useful, necessary stuff out of the intestine, you poison all the essential bacteria which keep us alive by keeping out pathogens, by helping us digest and convert molecules into molecules that we need. You kill those. How do you kill those? You do a lot of drugs, you starve to death, you eat a lot of poisonous stuff, you take a lot of antibiotics. Here's a big one. You take a lot of antibiotics. This is what our culture loves to do. This is war medicine. Oh, you have a bug. Let's kill the bug, even though it weakens your cell walls, even though it destroys your mitochondria because they're related to bacteria, your mitochondria which keep you alive. Take the engine out of your car, that's you without your mitochondria. That's it. That's the end. So you take all these cell poisons, you weaken your intestine. In the gay community where guys were getting sick, they were having too many sexual partners. They were in the gay community. They sell them these lubricants that have benzene in them, and benzene causes cancer. And you put this into a stripped colon. This absorbs into the body. Lo and behold, you find a lot of guys getting lymphoma, getting odd blood cancers. Nobody's ever blamed an exosome or any other kind of thing, for lymphoma, but you give people benzene and you're going to have lymphoma. AIDS is real enough. AIDS is clinical immune deficiency. You strip the gut, you strip the intestine, you weaken the body. You then, in the major medical model, treat it by piling on antibiotics, which do the same thing as the first round of drugs that you were doing, whether they were illicit or pharmaceutical, or whether you're an African and you're starving to death because you live in Soweto or outside of Kampala in Uganda and you don't have any clean water. The parasites and bacteria there will strip your gut and strip your
what we're saying here is that we've got a medically induced disease, by and large, made worse by medicine as well. When we come back, we're going to be joined also by the filmmaker, Brent Leung of House of Numbers, and you're going to check that out and how to get it next. Stay with me. We are joined right now by the brilliant young filmmaker, Brent Leung. Of course, when he hits 40, then I won't be able to call him the young filmmaker anymore, but he's not there yet. And he has this movie, House of Numbers. We've covered it ever since we knew it was coming in.